I've found some level of discipline in my life. Most currently is like, I go to workout classes, I ride my bike, I go on walks. I've found discipline.
Phails at philosophy.
Historically, if there's a situation where I can get something and not pay for it, if it's like donation based, I'll want to give this least donation or none at all. And that's something I really need to look at.
That's an interesting, yeah, I think that's worth exploring. Like, what is that about?
I think I might be the person that you're talking about that's like, where's the loophole? Because if someone was like minimum donation, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's donation, which means I give it or I don't give it, but I'm able to participate regardless. That's that like gray area seeking a way to, be a part of something without necessarily honoring the intent of the rules.
Right. And I think there are some people who are just nasty that's like how they are. But I think the majority of people who have that, it's probably rooted in trauma. It's probably rooted in survivorship. It's probably rooted in like, I've had to hold things together under tough situations before. So I've developed a...
Grant's being kind to me right now. He's saying you've lived through trauma, which I have lived through trauma. There's that sort of stuff and scarcity.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever have nothing.
Right.
I don't ever want to be, I've been poor.
But I do think that the reality is human systems work better if they're built off generosity.
Right. How do you think we get there? How do you think I think for me, I thought, well, instead of giving nothing, why don't I just start with $1? I always give $1 into these.
How's that feel?
I haven't done it yet.
You got a theory.
I've got a theory.
Well, practice it.
I need to go get a bunch of dollar bills.
Yeah.
And then just put $1 because that's not nothing.
Right. Yeah. And don't make it, I'm only going to give $1. Just be like, I'm at least going to give $1. If you feel like it that day and you got $5, give $5.
I'll go get that 5 changed.
Right.
I'll get changed for the 5.
Yeah. You're gaming it, man.
It's a 5. Yeah, I'll give $1. I can give a $5 bill. Part of me feels like if I give $5 or $1.
Do you have a fear that like if you give something that you've set precedent that you're now obligated to?
A little bit of that, but also like when I need that $1, it's not going to be there. Like there's a part of me believes this is never going to work and eventually I'll be destitute. And the retail pair of pants I bought 4 years ago could have been this thing that sustained me another month of doing a job that
that's nonsense,
currently doesn't.
You got to give that up.
I know.
Like
that sushi dinner.
Yeah, that is not going to make or break this. Like
the sushi dinner.
You're right. This may or may not work.
Right.
But your sushi dinner or your $5 in the jar at the meditation center, those are not going to be what makes or breaks you.
And meditation, and I believe in meditation.
Right.
I believe in the value of contemplative practices.
Right.
Buddhism.
No, all right. So I think it's funny because one of the earliest things that helped me restructure my relationship to wealth and money was this like photocopied, this was in the 90s, late 90s, photocopied like 30-page chaos magic, wealth magic grimoire manual I got.
What are you talking about?
Like it was just this thing on like practices for getting money.
Magic?
Yeah, like magic, like spellcraft for money, like from a chaos magic perspective.
Okay, what is chaos magic?
Chaos magic is like my root discipline, right? It's a form of magical practice that evolved really in the 60s and 70s. That was kind of like results-oriented spiritual discipline, results-oriented magic. Like, what is the goal? How do you get that? Develop a practice around that. All the spiritual tradition nonsense is only useful in as much as it works for you or it doesn't. So if praying to Jesus Christ works for you, you do that. If praying to Superman works for you, you do that. You figure it out.
Praying to the flying spaghetti monster?
Yeah, if that's that works the mojo to get you where you need to go, you do that.
So it's results-oriented.
It's results-oriented. Like whether there's some sort of magical thing going on, great if that works for you.
That makes sense
If
in the
it's
context of you saying
it's all
like,
a psychological game, do it.
it totally makes sense now. Earlier when you said, I was really distraught over what was going to happen after I died. So your chaos magic was, I'm going to come up with an afterlife that I really dig.
That was totally
works for me.
Totally coming out of, that was like peak chaos magic period.
That makes total sense.
So I got this handbook that was just about wealth magic. And basically it was an interesting handbook because like part of it was like, here's how to do a budget. Here's how to like think like sort of, if you want to get money, here are the spells to do so. Like balance your checkbook, maintain a budget, etc. But then there was this whole thing about remapping your relationship to money, right?
Yeah.
And that a lot of people have problems with money because they have made money a kind of moral issue for themselves, right? And having money is bad. Eat the rich, right? Like that. If you have money, you're a bad person. So you have to restructure that, right? And that was a lot of practices. Like I remember one that I did is just like, when you have money in your wallet, take it out, look at it, and think about how good it makes you feel to have some money in your pocket.
Nice.
And put it away, right? Write yourself absurd checks. Like, I'm going to write myself a check for $1 million and then burn it up in the candle flame.
That's what Jim Carrey did.
Right.
He wrote himself a check for $1 million when he wanted to become successful in acting. And,
right.
And he dated it like a year later or something, or some few.
Yeah, and that had a real profound effect on my relationship to money, right? I began to no longer resent money. But to see it ultimately not as something to acquire or something to like avoid, but as an energy to take in and help shape the world in the way that fits my truth, right? And for me, that truth is like, I don't know if all of us should be loving, kind, caring people, etc., right? I do tend to think that's root of what it is to be a human. I might be wrong. Right? I do seem to run into some humans who they are seems to be not that 100%. And it's not that they like had some trauma that sent them sideways. They just seem to be oriented around destroying other people. Right? I can't say that I think they're bad people or wrong. I can say they might be dangerous enough for the rest of us that we got to figure out how to deal with them.
Right.
Right? Like I can say that.
Right.
But that kind of moral judgment that's fundamental. I still honor them as human beings, and in some ways, like a human being,
the same way you would honor a snake,
right? Exactly.
That slithers,
right?
The same way you'd honor a tiger that eats,
right?
Bird babies or something.
But I don't think that's who we really tend to be as a whole, right? Like
we're social beings,
right? Exactly.
I think the predisposition is probably to behave in a social situation in a way that's helpful for others because we had to be social to survive, I think, evolutionarily speaking.
So yeah, the way I relate to money is much more like that now, like where I'm really happy to be paying to support my teachers even when I can't make it.
The yoga teachers, yeah.
And I'm happy to be in a place in life where
You're like a patron. This is like a patron,
right? And
patron's happiness.
That's kind of that happiness they were talking about, the second form of happiness of having wealth and using it well. That's real. I think that's real. And that's part of my restructuring of my relationship to money, to have so I guess at the end of the day, it's not about rejecting wealth. It's not about rejecting money. It's not about rejecting prosperity. It seems to be about having a different relationship, but part of that relationship is taking responsibility for that wealth, for yourself and for others. That seems to be what you're going through all over, right? A lot of what you're doing, it seems, is trying to figure out how to reconfigure things so you're better at being a good person.
Yeah, for sure.
And probably what I think is rightfully the case, you need to begin at home, right? The first thing you need to learn how to be good to is yourself.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't mean you need to put off being good to other people till that's done, but to a certain degree, a big focus needs to be there. I do think like a kind of self-effacing goodness is a recipe for disaster. Partly because in my experience, when you watch people who are like truly self-effacing,
What is self-effacing?
like where you deny yourself for others, where you,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
People pleasing at your own
right.
expense.
Those people actually seem to go sideways pretty often
Yeah.
and become
Well, there's like resentment,
right.
a lot of stuff that like
it builds up that
simmers underneath
right.
the surface.
So I do think that like part of it is